Hello, my friends. It's been a while. The reason is because I have lots of ideas, but they're quite long and involved, and they cover really valuable things that you might want to do in Poser, but they do take more time to record and more time to plan, so I'm a bit more reluctant to start them. Case in point, today's tutorial, what we're going to do today is I'm going to teach you how to add logos to clothes or t-shirts. I'm going to teach you how to use Photoshop or your your image editing program of choice. I'm going to teach you how to use the material layers option rather than combining with math nodes to add a layer on top, and we're also going to create an adjustable suntan layer. It's not going to be very well tuned, but the important thing is going to be the principle, and also I'm going to show you how to do some stuff in Photoshop. So first things first, Michael 4 t-shirt. Why do I use Michael 4? Because Michael 4 doesn't have breasts, so if he's naked, I'm not worried about it. And if you don't have the genitals attached, then he's safe to display on here. Let me just get rid of all of those previous renders. So Michael 4 is a good figure to use. I prefer him over Lom or however you say it. I think he's got much better facial morphs. I think he's had a good library of clothes. I prefer this character, the Michael 4 Victoria 4 generation. So, as I say, we're going to do an adjustable suntan layer. Now, we could take this a long way. I think I saw Dreamlight did something on Daz where you could adjust suntan and blushes and all of that stuff for every part of the body, different types of zones on the face, different types of zones on the body. I thought it was an excellent product. I'm not absolutely certain we could do that on Poser. We possibly could if we use the layers feature, but we're going to do a slightly simplified version today. So in the past, what you might do is we'll look at this t-shirt first. Look at the chest. The chest actually comes in two parts, upper and lower, for some reason. If I wanted to add a logo to here, I'd create a logo into Photoshop with a transparency map. Then I'd create a math node here, and then I'd use Blender or add or something like that, a math function maybe, and I'd wire it in here to add it on top of that. But a couple of versions ago, Photoshop added this layers feature where I can now add additional layers here. And that's what we're going to do today. So we've got this t-shirt. The first thing we need to do is to work out where on that t-shirt we can add a logo. So I'm going to select the t-shirt here, and the t-shirt selected up there. So it says PH t-shirt, and then that tells you the body part. And I'm just going to open here. This is the diffuse color, so the yellow color. And I'm just going to click in here, and that's going to let me find the path to where that t-shirt is. And then I can easily open. So I would copy that path, and then I can easily open that t-shirt. That's going to give me a start. Now I'm actually going to skip a step here because my t-shirt is somewhere else now. It's a classic here's one I produced earlier kind of situation. And what I'm doing as we speak, I'm actually opening it up on the side of the screen. This is an ultra wide monitor, so you can't see it. And I'm going to do t-shirts here. And it's one that I've created earlier. So here's the shape of the t-shirt, I think. So what I need to do is make sure that any logos I add would be inside that shape. So what I have here is a copyright image that I put on some other stuff that I do that's copyrighted, and that falls within that area here. So we'll load that into Photoshop, and I think it might already be loaded actually. Let me have a look. Here's Photoshop. Nope, I'll load it into Photoshop now. and here's this image. So what I want is to cut out this black and white bit here and eliminate the rest of the background. And I want to eliminate the background here. So let me see how's the easiest way to do that. Right, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to, let me think. Now, I'm just wondering whether or not I should flatten this down. No, I'll do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to choose the eraser tool, and I'm going to choose background eraser, and at the moment it's contiguous, which means it will only erase the areas that are linked directly to where I click the start. So watch these holes in my name here, and okay, is it doing layers? Okay, right, I'm just going to flatten all of these layers down. So merge, visible layer. So now they're all merged into one layer. I'm actually going to get rid of those two layers. Right, so we've just got this now, a single layer. So now if I click here, it should, in theory, I always get confused which of these two to use. Delete everything. Okay, that's actually, right, I had contiguous switched off, right. So if I click contiguous here, so it means only the bits that are connected. When I click that, the holes don't get deleted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off, and what I can do is I can adjust this tolerance, and the tolerance is how similar to the selected color the bits that will be deleted have to be. So supposing this was like a kind of a grey color as well, a darker grey color, I might need to set that tolerance a lot lower. You can also use it to get rid of edge fringing when it cuts out, but 32 is the default, I believe. So I'm just going to click on this grey here, and I'm going to get rid of everything, and there's a last little bit up there, and I'm just going to manually erase that. Okay, so now all we have is this text image that I want. So I'm going to have to add that layer again for the layer above. Now, sometimes some transparency works in Photoshop, like if I save this where it's black and grey, that means it's transparent in Photoshop, but Poser sometimes doesn't recognize the transparency or doesn't behave properly with transparency. So what I'm going to do, actually, that's right, that took out, did you see there, look at the sharpness of this image here, and you'll see that there's grayness here. That's called anti-aliasing. Anti-aliasing is when Photoshop softens the edges by adding intermediate colors. So this was a black image on a white background, but it anti-aliased the edges. And then when I did that delete thing, the eraser here, because the magic eraser, because the tolerance was too high, it deleted a lot of these greys. I'll just demonstrate here. So I'll click on the white, and you'll see a lot of those greys have been lost as well. So I actually lost a lot of detail in the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that down to, let's say, 8 and see how that works. So we'll still lose some of these very fine nearly whites, but that still looks like there's plenty of detail there. Okay, but it has deleted the white inside there. So what I'm going to do in this particular case is I'm going to turn contiguous on, and then I'm going to manually get rid of these. See the hole? Oh, daisy. I've got center wheel scroll turned on in Photoshop. So as I roll the middle mouse wheel, it gets rid of that. That bit I might want to manually do that. It all depends who it's touching. It's kind of anti-alias together. And now we've retained that lovely sharpness without having to set the tolerance too low. Okay. The lower the tolerance goes, the more jaggy your edges become. So no, that is fine. Here we go. A couple more. Okay, so what I have here now is the t-shirt shape. Let me just get rid of that again up there. I try not to make mistakes on these tutorials, but sometimes when you see me make mistakes, it kind of illustrates the issues that you're going to encounter. So sometimes the mistakes can be instructive in their own right. Okay, there's some blobby thing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press B for brush, and I'm going to reduce the brush size so that I can see it. And I'm going to switch over here so that it's the white brush. Oops, a daisy, I'm still in eraser mode. I thought I pressed B for brush, I did. Right, okay, that's weird. That went back, and there you go. So now that just gets rid of that little bit of noise there. I don't know how that crept in. Anyway, so, right, so I'm holding space. That gives me that drag hand. And now I can drag the image around like that, or I could have just zoomed out, whichever. But what I just want to do is have a look at these touching points to see if I need to manually go in and get rid of those. And I will get rid of those. So I'll choose the eraser tool. This time it's a regular eraser. I'm going to reduce this to a single pixel brush. And I'm just going to get rid of that. See, the brush actually does anti-aliasing itself. You can actually turn it off, but I'm not going to for now. And maybe I'll just take this grey here. I could add that black back in, perhaps. X to change these two over. Just add that. So, oops, daisy. That's meant to be adding. Why is? Oh, I'm in the eraser tool, but okay. Okay, right. Okay. Control Z to undo. Square brackets to reduce the size of the brush. And there you go. Okay. So last little bit of cleanup here. Oh, no, I'm not in the eraser brush now. So eraser, just clean that up. There you go. That looks a lot tidier. I think you'll agree. So this is going to be my t-shirt image. Now, if I save this as a JPEG, the background will go to white, which I don't want. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is either create a transparency mask or I'm just going to fill the background to black. But the trouble is, if I fill the background to black, see, this is also black on the edge of these texts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, as I did before. I'm going to fill that to black. So I'm going to go to my gradient fill, G, and make sure I'm on black fill. And I'm going to make sure that this, let me see, I'm in the top layer, and oh, I'm in the wrong gradient field, silly idiot. Paint bucket. And again, we have tolerance and anti-alias and contiguous here. So I'm going to leave it contiguous and fill in again like I did before. Tolerance, I'll turn that down to 16. And now I'm creating a transparency mask. This is good if if the background's a particular color and I just want to turn that transparent. B for brush, just tidy up any little fireflies. So fireflies are little spots in rendering. Fireflies are things caused by the rendering engine not quite getting the lighting right, and you get these little tiny dots. In this particular case, they're just areas that were not visible. There we go. So see, there's some fringing here, but hopefully that will disappear into the t-shirt. You don't want these edges to be completely sharp necessarily, because then they won't anti-alias into the image. They won't blend with the image very well. So here. Okay, so if I save this as it is, the bits that are black will be transparent, but that also means that I'll have transparency here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn that layer off and make it invisible. Then I'm going to save that layer, and I'm going to just call it copyright tutorial. Now I'm going to switch over So I'm using the layers palette here, which you can turn on up here with the window if it's not visible, layers. It should be on by default. And now I'm going to turn on the black layer. So now this is the bit without the image. This is now going to be my transparency map. And I'm going to save that. And I'm going to call that copyright tutorial transparency. Actually, I probably should have saved this as I will try it like this. Right. Sometimes Poser does some weird stuff with Photoshop type images. It's better to save them as JPEGs. So, right, back to here. We've got our t-shirt. What we're going to do, choose the body parts we want. So we want chest fab. I'm assuming that's this bit. In fact, I can just click on it and find out what was that called. Chest low fab. Okay, that was weird. That doesn't look low to me. No, it was chest fab, I was correct. And I'm just going to go up here next to material layers and I'm going to click the plus button. Now what I've done is created a new layer, and you can tell that because there's a layer 1 here, and if I click this down arrow I can see the layers, or I could click, oh my goodness, I've gone to that. Come back. There we go. Always save user interface starts. And I can tell because this is blue, or I could click material layers here and I can see the layer navigator. So just click on that, click OK. So first thing I want to do is change this from blue to white. That's just so that you know that it's another layer. Then I'm going to do new node, 2D textures, image map, and I'm going to wire that into here. And I'm going to do that again. 2D textures, image map, and I'm going to wire that into transparency. Right, now I need to load the images. So where did I save that? I saved it to t-shirts. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into there, the path. So here's my t-shirts, and what's the one that I did? Tutorial. So this is going to be the image that goes on top, this here. And it doesn't show up in here, which is a bit annoying. I think it used to, but for some reason it doesn't now. And then I'm going to add the transparency map here, and that's in the same place. Tutorial transparency. Here's where we'll find out whether or not Photoshop works. And now I need to turn the transparency up for this to 100% or 10. And what that will mean is anything black will be invisible, anything white will, anything not black will be visible, and shades of grey will appear as shades of grey. Right, so if I do a quick render now, assuming it's recognised those Photoshop layers, which it hasn't. Okay, now there's one more thing that I need to do actually. But before I do that, I'm going to need to go back and save those as JPEGs, I think. So we'll save that as same name, but just save it as JPEG. And then I'm going to switch these two over. And I'm going to save this as copyright JPEG. What was it called? Copyright tutorial. Save that as JPEG, which is also a much smaller file format but can't be edited. Oh, saved it as a PSD. No, JPEG. What the heck are you doing? Copyright tutorial, image format JPEG. But it's trying to save it as a Photoshop format here. Got an image warning here. That's odd. I'm just going to overwrite it. Right, there we go. As long as I keep Photoshop open, I can always undo backwards. Right, let's go in here now. So just make sure I've got chest fab, yeah. Copyright tutorial. Okay, I don't know if this is the one. Okay, we'll just choose that for now. And transmap. Try that. Should get a little bit showing up here. Let's have a look. Oops, a daisy, partial render, don't need that. Control R to render. There you go. So it's showing up. So it was the fact that I saved it as Photoshop format. Although Poser enabled you to choose Photoshop, it doesn't use them in materials anymore. Now I'm just going to copy this whole layer, and I'm now going to go to chest lower. I'm going to add another layer here, and I'm simply going to click on the Poser surface, and I'm going to do replace. So it's exactly the same thing, except now it's the bottom half of the t-shirt. I guess they did it so that you could have panels at the top. I quite like this t-shirt, L75 it is. And there's the full thing. So now what I've done is I've created a t-shirt with this texture on top. There's one more little thing. Can you see the t-shirt shininess doesn't match? And that's because of this specular value, because the layer on top takes precedence in terms of specularity. So it's a way that you could, for example, add shine to an object selectively. You could have the base layer has got one lot of shine, and then you could add additional layers that had a different level of shine. Obviously you could also accomplish that with a grayscale map, but this is another way of doing it. And I'm just going to turn this specular down. So you can actually use these layers to create effects on different layers. It kind of blends everything together, but you can use it rather than just using grayscale maps to do cutouts or shine or reflectance or whatever. You can actually use these layers to create quite complicated effects without having to worry about the maths of it all. I think it was a really good thing that they added. So Control R, let's render that. And there, so now it's matching the specularity of the overall shirt. And there you go. So you might think to yourself, well, that's really easy. All you've just done is showed me how to create a texture on a t-shirt. And to be honest, that's really useful just in its own right. But let me show you a really great trick here. I go back to the material room. Okay, so now I'm going to go to a different folder on the material room. I'm going to go to a different drive. And I'm now going to save that layer. So make sure I'm not in the base layer. Let's go to the chest again. Make sure I'm on the layer 1. I could rename this, by the way. Let's just call that, actually, I can't remember how to rename it. It doesn't matter. I can rename that. I can rename that to whatever. Well, maybe it's in here. Let's have a look. Yeah, there you go. So we'll call that logo. And I'll have to do that for the other part as well. Chest lower, and I'm going to go to here because it's quicker to do it this way this time. I'm going to call that logo. But here's the real cool thing now. Watch this. So I'm in the material room here, and I'm going to save this to my temp folder. I've actually got a folder on my main Poser folder called Mine, which is all of my work. You can save it wherever you want, but I generally tend not to save into the same folder as a commercial thing. I like to separate my work from everybody else's, and I do plus to save. So now we'll just call this logo. And we have different choices. We can save just the texture of, like a color or like an eye texture or something. We can do the collection, which is all. So let me just clarify. The single material I could be just the upper chest or the lower chest or the stripes, or the material collection. That's all the different elements of this t-shirt. So it'll change everything at once. But in this case, I'm choosing material layers. And you can do select layers, and you can see selectively you can choose any layers you want. And by default, it's just set straight away. So I'm just going to save that. Now, you might think, wow, Matt, that is really, really impressive. You're such a great tutorial maker. And you'd be right. But let me show you something even cooler. You're going to love this. Right, L75 casual t-shirt. So I go into here, and I find my t-shirt. Like, my God, there's a lot of stuff in here. Right. And I'm going to go all the way down. Here you go. I'm going to add a different one of the presets. So I'm going to add a plain blue. Now, you'll notice that it still has the layers. And here's the real cool thing. Oops, Daisy. Go down to my temp. Now if I add logo, in theory now, what I have is a logo that can be applied to different base colors. So you're probably thinking now, wow, that was really amazing, Matt, and you've got great abs. And again, you are correct, but how useful is that? Because now what we've created is a layer that you can add to any product of the same template. Obviously, if I tried to add that to a different t-shirt, the UV map, that's the way that the materials are wrapped onto the skin, would mean that that wouldn't work. But this is I use this when I'm creating marketing material for different people and different clubs. And it's just a super easy way to drop in their logo. So just to recap, what we did there was we used the transparency map to cut out the background rather than trying to use just transparency in an image, which can be unpredictable. And then we just added the logo there. But the Photoshop bit was where the real magic happened. Now let me show you something else, kind of cool, a slight variation on the theme here. So I'm going to go back to the main bit. I'm going to take the t-shirt and I'm going to make that invisible. So I'm going to go up to properties. I hate having to work on this small screen, but you won't see what's happening otherwise. So the t-shirt goes invisible. This guy's got his hairy chest. What if I want suntan? What if I want sunburn? What if I want tattoos or whatever? So I'm going to use the same principle. So here's a massive, massive problem. For those of you who have been around for a long time, you might remember that back in the day, when you used to get textures, you used to also get a texture file with a T suffix. So it would be Michael for M4 underscore T, and the T stood for template. And nobody does that anymore. And I didn't realize how valuable it was until I started working with skin textures. And now I'm really, really gutted that you can't get templates anymore. So this is the unwrapped template for the skin of Michael. So M4 high body, this is the default, I think. Oh no, high body. So this is his body and his ears unwrapped and flattened. So what happens is the 3D texture has splits. You can see where the splits are on the texture here, and they're kind of cut out and then unwrapped like some kind of Ed Gein kind of horror story of skin unwrapping. And what that enables you to do is to project a 2D texture onto a 3D model, and then imagine that you wrap it in cellophane using this texture. So what that enables us to do is to put our own stuff into that texture. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my Jeremy texture. So all I'm going to do is the arms. And let me explain why this is going to be a pain. And it tends to suit things more like blushes or things that don't have to precisely wrap around the edges, because you'll see here, these are seams. And the seams from one side have to match exactly to the other side. And you used to get these templates that had different color lines, like topographical lines on a map that wrapped across the texture, and it was just there was no color on it and no skin texture. It was just a template with these lines that wrapped across, so you could see exactly where one side wrapped onto the other, and then there'd be a different color that went down here, and it made it very easy to match the wraparound. But unfortunately, they don't do that anymore, and I don't have any of those old templates. I threw them all away before I knew how important they were, and now you just can't get them anymore. And Daz, presumably to save money or effort, doesn't give them anymore, nor does anybody really on Renderosity or whatever, because it just takes a bit more effort to do, and it's a real shame because it's needed. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create in this case, I'm just going to create a suntan, and I'm only going to do it for this bit here. So there's multiple ways that I could change this for a suntan, but all I want to do is just create a color overlay. So I could, for example, I could just go layers, and then I could change a color there, or I could go here and hue saturation and then increase the saturation or whatever, but I'm making permanent changes to this image, and then what I'd do is I'd save that under a separate name and then I'd use a new image. But what I want to do is create what's known as a parametric color mode. So parametric means mathematical. It means that you can change it. Now in Photoshop there is a parametric way of doing it already. You go down to here and then you just select hue saturation and it creates a parametric layer on top, and then I just click on that and then I can just change the settings up here for the hue and the saturation without permanently changing the image. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave the parametricization, blah blah blah, if that's a word, parametrization to Poser rather than trying to do it in Photoshop, and that gives me more control directly within Poser without having to keep coming in and out and making specific images in Photoshop. So let me show you how we're going to do this. What I want to do is I want to select just these hands. See, these are the hands, these are the feet, fingernails and toenails. Yeah. So what's going to be the easiest way to do that? I think I'm going to start with a new layer again, and I'm going to create a black flood fill everywhere that isn't a skin texture. So I'm in flood fill. I'm just going to check the tolerance here. I'm going to go up to 30, and I'm going to do contiguous. Here's an important one, all layers. If I don't select that, it just fills the whole layer. Control Z to undo. So I select that and it respects the layers underneath. So I click that. So now what I've got is a black layer here, just like we did before, transparency layer. Now I'm only interested in doing this for the arms. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in black everywhere that the arms aren't. So we know we've got an arm here. So what if I go there? No, okay. I couldn't tell if that was joined here. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to get a brush, make sure I've got a black selected, and I'm just going to just paint across that edge. And I'm going to do the same here. Okay, so that's one arm isolated, apart from that little bit there. Remember, I'm going to throw away the stuff that's black, so it doesn't matter if I just splodge in here. And now I'm going to make the brush really big. I'm just going to paint over this bit, square bracket to change the size of the brush. Different keys probably in GIMP or whatever you might be using. And I'm going to use a flood fill, and I'm just going to do that. And then I'm just going to go back to my brush and I'm just going to tidy up these edges. Smaller brush for more control, more precision. Just quickly draw over that. Up here, by the way, you can change the hardness of the brush. Let me see, there's a brush adjustment somewhere. Window, brush settings here. And what you can do is you can change the edge hardness of the brush. So at the moment, oh, it says it's very hard actually, but it's it doesn't feel like it. Right, I'm going to reduce it. Let's just click to see. No, that's a bit anti-aliased. I would want that even harder, to be honest. Could be the brush type. It's a soft brush in the first place. Right. Why would you want a hard brush? Because a hard brush gives you more precision, although it does give you hard edges, stepped anti-aliased edges. Stepped edges which are not anti-aliased. Sorry, I misspoke. So I'm just getting rid of this junk. Actually, I could have probably achieved this another way. Right. I could have just inverted the other mask, but it doesn't matter. For now, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to choose brown. This is going to be my suntan color. And I'm just going to fill, gradient fill there. So now I've got a suntan fill, and if I need it, I've got a transparency layer there. So for now, I'm just going to save the suntan layer. I think that might be enough actually. So save as, and I'm going to call that suntan, and I think I've created one earlier actually. Did I? Where's it gone? Here, Jeremy Lim Suntan. So now all I need to do go into here, go into this, into the material room again, and I'm going to choose the parts of the body that I want to apply the suntan to. So we'll start by clicking on the arm, and I'm going to create a new layer again as we did before, change that to white. There ought to be an option to turn that off so that it doesn't automatically do blue as you get used to it, because always one extra click that you don't need. And I'm just going to do a new 2D texture here and wire that into there. Turn the specularity down. We're definitely not going to need that. Let me just that probably lead me to t-shirts again, won't it? Yep. Okay. I'm just going to go down to the layer below to get the path. Base layer. Just going to click on here. Open that. Find the path here. Copy that out. And now I'm going to feed that into the layer above. This time I'm just going to use this to choose the layer. Oh, cancel that. Choose the layer here. Copy the path into there. Paste. Control V. And now here's my suntan. Now I'm going to copy this layer. Control C, because the arms consist of upper arms and forearms. So I'm going to go skin forearm. I'm going to add another new layer. And I'm just going to paste that. Sometimes you can use that just, oh, I'm going to replace that. And sometimes you can just use this as a general template and then copy in the individual parts here as needed. But right, so what we've got now is a layer with a really, really crude suntan. And now all we need to do is change this transparency value. So 0.5. So that's half transparent. Control R to render. Nope, still too strong. Oh no, that's the lower arms. Okay, let's do skin arm. Do that to 0.5 as well. I don't know what did I say, 0.7? 0.7, let's render that. Let's have a look. Okay, so you can see there's a slight difference there, but you get the idea. Mouse scroll here. It's really worth setting up your speed key. Excuse me, your speed keys on Poser. So here we've got slightly more suntan, slightly less. Now, these hard edges, obviously, you don't really want a hard edge on the wrist. This is where you're going to spend a bit of time, perhaps. Maybe his whole hands are suntan, maybe they're not. What if this is a blush? Maybe you only want the blush on the cheeks. So what I've done is I've created a way to blend a colouring layer above this layer. I could have just gone in, incidentally. I think I mentioned this in the previous video. I could have just gone in and done that. So I would do face this time, so as you can see it nice and clearly. And oh my God, I hate this way of doing up and down. And I could have just put a HSV layer in there to recolor it, or I could even change this. Sometimes I find that shades of grey let you get tans or whatever, or I could wire in here, math HSV2 node here, wire that into there, wire that into there, and I could increase the saturation by say 1.5, too much, 1.2. So now I've created some suntan, or I could change the hue here to create some redness. Okay, I don't know. Okay, red's the other way, I guess. Right, he's jaundiced. He's a walking dead. Right, how's that look? Okay, now he's been holding his breath too long, but you get the idea. Okay, each different ways of achieving layering. But what I like about this layer option, using the layers here, go back to my arm. What I like about this is that it gives you this nice parametric layer, which you can adjust using the transparency value. Anyway, guys, talked enough time. So just to refresh, we can use layers for recoloring, or we can use layers to add logos. And if you do it with logos, or incidentally, if I was going to say that, supposing I'd done a suntan for the whole body, I'd just simply go in now and I'd do save material, leave it on there, and I'd make sure that I saved a material. Oh no, am I going to do a material collection? Now this is where it gets difficult because I want the layers, but I also want the collection, and I didn't bother to see if you could do both. No. Okay, so that would select all of the body parts, but it wouldn't select all of the layers. Okay, let's have a look. Oh no, this does all the body parts as well. Right, okay. So I could just select all and then it would do the layers for all the body parts. And I'm only interested in the layer one. Okay? And then what I've got is a way that I can dial suntan into any Michael 4 or Victoria 4 character, even if they don't have it, and I don't have to manually add it. I've now got a single click that I can add, and it's just a nice, easy way of working. Hopefully you found that useful. You have a great day.